So, justice for Chris Kaba. Justice for Chris Kaba. Justice. Um, it's always unfortunate when we come to this show in order to speak about issues that are as disturbing as the unarmed black man Chris Kaba, who was killed in the UK last week. There's since been a flooding of protesters with justice for Chris Kaba, and we stand for Black Lives, protesting. Let's say that's what they've been protesting on. This is something that we've spoken about a lot. Miles, you've helped organize Black Lives Matter marches. The what can you give us on the killing of Chris Kaba?
Just that this is all too familiar. Just that this was an unarmed black man killed in South London, right? And that could end up with anything, right? Unarmed black man killed, United States. Unarmed black man killed in France. You know what I'm saying? You could. It could be any of us, right? And I can't be anything. I can only be armed or unarmed. That's it. I can't be any less armed than unarmed, right? And so as a black man, it hurts. It's hard to feel like, hard to feel safe, right? But my hope, and even though I'm, tired of having to have these conversations, my hope is that we ain't gonna stand for this too much more as we recognize this as a global collective struggle, right? So yesterday was designated as a day of protest organized by Justice for the Chris Kaba campaign. They are, and even to add insult to injury, right? They were, this giant protest was covered by the news and miscovered as a celebration of the Queen's death, or like of her memory. And that, like, how backwards can you have it? But these folks came together. The Justice for Chris Kaba campaign came together to celebrate Chris's life, and to demand justice for over 1,800 deaths in the police custody since 1990 in the UK. Like, it's crazy. So the Independent Office for Police Conduct, the IOPC, is investigating what happened on September 5th when Chris Kaba was shot. The officer was suspended after this public pressure started to bubble up. And so we're just in this position again where we're grieving and we're trying to figure out what's next. Oh, snap. We lost weight. I didn't even realize that. That's crazy, man. I was so deep in what I was saying, trying to communicate to y'all. Wow. But dang. Well, until my brother come back, man, I guess I'm just hold it down and just be like, yo, man, this is, like I said, all too familiar. You know how I do. You know how my stance on policing, and just what the world is like under the system of mass incarceration. I think there's too many jobs wrapped up in the police, right? I think these folks are asked to be social workers. They're asked to be protectors of property, of life, of our way of life, and I don't think they're doing a very good job. But you don't have to take it from me, right? The Metropolitan Police Service been messing up, right? But I'm gonna get into that in 1 second. I see some comments popping up. Y'all need to have a segment on fighting in the UFC. Oh man, shout out to our folks commenting, man. Shout out to Chilla. We always appreciate you joining the show, man, holding it down. You're right, man. We do need to have a segment on fighting in the UFC, because I'm gonna fight my brother for leaving me on the pod. But it's all good, man. We're glad you're back.
Yo, I love the fact that coming back into the room, and please excuse the technical difficulties, seeing, yo, producer, run my comments as one of the comments is the perfect way to get back into this, man. Thanks for covering the Chris Kaba situation. And I'm sure you've touched on how the people of the UK community of feeling overseen, overlooked. It does come at a time of national mourning. Over here we get the news that the Queen has passed. That's one thing, but in the UK, I was seeing emails from the uni talking about, hey, this is national mourning. Counselors are available if you need to be able to speak about this 97-year-old woman who definitely participated in a murderous regime. There's help for you. There's that type of thing going on too. So that really can overshadow what is something that communities of people of color in the UK have called out for the longest. We saw them do the same thing during Black Lives Matter with Daniel Kaluuya and his speech that he gave, and John Bottega. I think more so John Bottega giving that speech in the middle, being very impassioned. But like, people in the UK are also going through this, right? That's not something that's different from what we understand our brothers and sisters in the US are going through with this police brutality. Same thing in Nigeria. So it's kind of the same issue. I think to some extent it would be cool to be able to find how we can get involved in this, who we can reach out to, some info of where people can go find a way to be a part of the situation, because this unarmed black man was killed. Did you get into the specifics of the details of how the murder happened?
I didn't. But so basically, the information that I have is that he was driving. Is in his Audi. He got hemmed in, pulled over by two police cars on a narrow residential street, and then one round was fired from a police weapon and killed him. Right, and it put me in this really messed up place of being like, of hoping there's a video, but also hoping there's not, like not wanting to see it at all, but thinking that's the only way, if this is caught on camera and filmed from multiple angles, that we're going to get justice. And even then, right? But I'm sitting here hoping that it was captured for justice, because I don't believe that justice will be served otherwise, but hoping that what a crazy thing to hope for, you know?
So that's actually one of the three things that the family had called for as part of their demands on how the proceedings should go, which is that they want to be able to see the video. Is that first the police that did it get suspended, which he has been, that they want to be able to see the video and get released the footage, and also on how long the trial is going to take. So this coming week, they are going to be able to show the family the footage of what happened and release that body cam for everyone to take a better look. And then also they say that the process is a complicated 6 to 9 month process. And, just imagine in the midst of having lost a family member, not having to go to war, through legal battle for 9 months, man, that's excruciating ordeal. So whatever further assistance, if this is a movement that touches your heart, definitely, this family is going to need a lot of that support. It really, like, being a black dude, man, it does get very, hearing this type of thing is one of those situations where you're like, it could be any of us. And that's what makes it, always hit home, where it's just like, man, this dude was in his car, altercation, what they said he had on him, he didn't have, and now he's dead, So quite honestly speaking, Miles, I feel that type of fear the most when I'm in the U.S. The U.S. is one of the hardest countries for me to be. As a black person, it's quite tiring to be so hyper vigilant about your blackness in different spaces.
Yeah, it weighs on you, right? And it's traumatic. I mean, you spend years and years in these spaces. I currently live in one of the most heavily policed and surveilled spaces in the United States, right? Because the combination of the Chicago Police Department and the University of Chicago Private Police, which is the largest private police department in the United States, or university police department in the United States. And yeah, there's a lot of 12 around the clock, 12, all right? So I feel you, and it weighs on you, and it results in a disproportionate amount of contact with the police for people that aren't engaged in any type of criminal activity, right? Or are engaged in the type of criminal activity that everybody's involved in, right? Bootlegging movies and whatever, the tiniest misdemeanors you get caught up for. And it's a issue that disproportionately affects the black and brown folks that we try to lift up and support on this show. I came with the facts today. Getting back to the UK, right? This Chris Kaba situation comes at a time where the Met is already under investigation, not only for their stop and search practices, but for a variety of failures. Right. I'm gonna hit y'all with some more facts real quick, just because we trying to inform the people.
Get them.
So 2 out of 10 of their stop and searches get a result, right? This is a practice that has been going on, stopping folks for, they're supposed to have reasonable suspicion, but they also got this code joint called Section 60, which means they can search a specific area without reasonable suspicion. Just stop and search anybody they think they want to stop, right? This results in black people being 9 times more likely to be searched by the Metropolitan Police, right? Stop and search. The Metropolitan Police also have a persistent backlog of online child abuse referrals. They've also been cited for failure to prevent re-victimization and for failure to tell victims that investigations into their crimes were being dropped. So you got people that have been contacted by the police, told they're being investigated, and never informed of anything else later again, right? Not to mention the murder of Sarah Everard earlier this year by the Met officer Wayne Cousins. Not to mention the strip searching of child Q, something I don't advise everybody to look up, but that's a real terrible situation that happened. The stop and search of Bianca Williams and her boyfriend Ronaldo dos Santos. It's Ricardo dos Santos, who are both Olympic athletes. Right, like the list goes on and on of the failures of this police department that have already been cited and investigated. So at what point do we collectively agree that, as scary as it may be to reimagine what systems we put in place to replace police, that we might have to take that seriously?
This comes from the same country that in 2001 produced a study that said, actually, there is no racism in Britain, you guys. Congratulations. There's no racism. So everybody get back to mourning the Queen peacefully. And it's a bit difficult to do when you have folks like my brother Miles, who puts out the information so clearly, man. It clearly is another instance where people of color are being treated disproportionately. So we've always had this conversation of defund the police, don't defund the police. And I think, we understand each other's stances and we have different nuances towards the same stance. But in the case of the UK being an international man of impact, you get the call, you get the call to assist and be a part of a thinking entity. What's your contribution and ideas on what's a priority in order for this to get better?
Well, I think the UK is an interesting case where, in a lot of ways, I envy the lack of armed police, right? And like, clearly, it's still too many, right? Rest in peace to Chris Kaba. But I would investigate and like to lean on evidence-based methods for ways to connect the police with the community. And by police, I mean whatever individuals are left on that force after we decide who should really be doing the job of a social worker, or which of their duties should really be done by a social worker, which of them should really be done by a mental health professional, which of them should really be done by a lawyer, right? Or somebody with or a variety of different, like just maybe somebody should respond that's just a paramedic, right? So whoever's left on the force, they need to have a deep connection with community and there has to be a very clear system of accountability for any harm, including and aside from violence that's perpetrated on that community. I would say that there needs to be a council of people to hold the police accountable, and the idea that the police should get together and share only amongst themselves what really happens, right? The blue wall of silence needs to be completely unacceptable. Professionalize, limit the amount of people that actually need to be armed police to the bare minimum that you possibly can, and then professionalize those people so that they have the utmost training, not only to de-escalate, which is so key, de-escalate, not escalate, de-escalate situations, but also address situations when they really do need escalation in the way that preserves the most life, no matter who's on the other side of the gun.
That lack of professionalism, is something that goes just beyond people of color getting policed. We also saw that happen at the school shooting that happened in New Mexico, where now the footage has come out of the police who were in the hallway for close to an hour as this dude was just shooting up the school, you know. So I definitely do think there's a lot of room for that. Thank
For sure. I got
you
you.
for sharing that with us.